People who separated divorced within 1 year of getting married. When did you know it was a mistake? Not me, but my dad. He got remarried after being divorced for about 5 years. I would have been all for it, but he met this woman in another state on a business trip, and would travel up to see her every weekend after they hit it off. They knew each other for 6 months before getting engaged. The engagement was only for 3 months. My brother and I tried telling him about all the red flags, telling him to take his time. My dad is very well off financially, and we kept trying to warn him things were moving too quickly, that she was only in it for the money. She moved her whole family from their hometown to the city my dad lived in, including their elderly grandmother who needed constant medical supervision. Before they were even married, the pantry was full of Whole Foods brand food instead of the local grocery store, as was tradition. All new furniture, and had the house repainted, all at his bride-to-be's request. The marriage lasted all of 2 weeks. Apparently my dad's new bride had the gall to ask my dad to leave everything to her in the will, and write me and my brother out. Only then did he realize she was in it for the money. The next day he had the marriage annulled. Someday I would like to know what it's like to fall so completely for someone that I don't recognize. They are taking advantage of me. Must feel good for that instant before it all comes crashing down. When he choked me against a wall at a party, he was mad that I laughed at another guy's joke. People were passing by us but just kinda looked and kept going. Lots of other stuff happened, but it took me a while to wake up and break away. I was in denial for too long. Back in the early 1980s, I spent 6 years in the US Navy. In 1986 I was recruited to go into the US Army through a program for technical and intelligence experienced military personnel to become warrant officers. All the Navy offered me was sea duty and more sea duty. It looked like a real good deal. I was engaged to a young lady 3 years my junior and had a bit more than $20,000 in savings. Everything looked promising with a new career and family life. The wedding went off without a hitch. I was looking at a vacation of about 3 months between exiting the Navy and entering training for the Army. It was when my recruiter contacted me over my security clearance that things went south. My credit report did not match my questionnaire. There was 3 credit cards with a $14,000 balance I didn't mention. It was no big deal. They weren't delinquent, but I needed to amend my answers to account for them. Turns out my wife had opened up a charge card at our bank, then got a couple of store cards around town. She had purchased some serious clothes and jewelry, but the real kicker was she had bought a horse. She had taken lessons as a child and decided this was going to be her new thing. There was the price of the animal, riding gear, saddle and tack, vet bills, stable fees, yada yada yada. I ended up dumping a big chunk of my savings into paying down these cards, then amending my questionnaire responses. She was from a very blue-collar family. They were very good people who worked hard for everything they had. But I don't think credit ratings and compounded interest rates were much discussed at the dinner table. So I explained about credit cards, the huge interest rate, how long it would take to pay one down, then about security clearances and having a huge debt with no job would affect it. I treated this all as a bump in our relationship, but things got dark really fast. My ship date was coming up and things had to be done before I started training. I was in good physical shape, but I was facing boot camp, 8, airborne school, ranger school, warrant officer selection and advanced training. Basically 18 months of utter insanity. I was prepared for what I faced, but there was a lot that could go wrong. If I got through it, I was a warrant officer, but if I dropped the ball along the way, I would not only be enlisted, but junior enlisted in a job they would decide for me. In theory, I could end up a line cook in some chow hall at Camp Nowhere. About a week later, the phone rings. It's about the horse. No one was taking care of the animal or cleaning the stable, or even feeding the poor thing. The stable had covered down for the sake of the animal, but now we're charging $350 a week for the extra services my wife was supposed to be doing. She was leaving our apartment every day, and I assumed it was for riding and care of the animal. And for the first week she was. The second week, she was lawyer shopping. She wanted out. She must have gotten wind of what happened at the stable and didn't come home that night. The next day I got served with papers. Total marriage time, 47 days. So I ended up with an apartment with 4 months on the lease, no car and a horse. I found a new home for the horse. I had to defer my ship date and it took 14 months to settle the divorce. My security clearance was approved 2 days after the papers were filed. I shipped the next day. In the end, I had 2 pair of pants, 3 shirts and a pair of shoes that had no business on anyone's feet. I was working 2 minimum wage jobs, 14 hours a day, paying down debt, lawyers' fees, rent and sometimes eating to get by. I ended up at Fort Sill, Oklahoma mowing lawns for 2 months as I shipped without a training slot for boot camp. I wasn't happy, but I was relieved. In airborne school, I met a ROTC cadet who was going to airborne school over her summer break. She had a year to go before her commission and we hit it off. We'd get together on holidays, between training, long weekends. When I finished training and got my warrant, still a cadet, she flew across the country to give me my first salute. I gave her a silver dollar as per tradition. 2 months later, she received her commission, to which I saluted her, and returned the silver dollar. Married that Christmas. We've been together 31 years. Super late to the party here, but I knew it was over when she started a fight at my brother's funeral because female attendees were giving me hugs as part of condolences. Sorry you had to deal with that. My younger brother passed away last year and I can't imagine having to think about anything else other than the pain of it. My older bro's crazy ex actually showed up to the funeral and used the whole event to try to get close to him again. Some people are just unbelievable. I knew a week after I got married when he slammed my head into the wall because he saw me looking at a man at an ice cream shop. I'm from the US, and got married in England. This dude changed completely right after we got married. A couple of weeks later, I had to get out of there and come back to the US. This happened to me as well. I woke up the morning after our wedding and we were driving. He took my head and slammed it into the truck window. It was insanity to be with someone 4 years and instantly shit changes. It wasn't even like I was with the same person. It's such a horrible feeling. Even though we dated for a while, my parents were against the marriage. After I realized that I didn't want to be with him, I felt so ashamed to admit to my parents that I had made a mistake. I'm glad you got out of that relationship as well. She nearly killed me because she thought I was cheating from some texts that went to my mother. Weird. I had an unstable ex who almost killed us by driving erratically on a freeway in Chicago because he saw me texting love you to someone. It was my brother. When he said my son's suicide attempt interfered with his ex's birthday party, I truly cannot even imagine. I am so glad he is gone and I wish you all the peace and healing one can possibly have in this world. Thank you. We are all so much better and my son has grown into an amazing man and father. This was the first one that made me stop and wait, fucking what? I was blindsided by it. We lived together for a year about an hour from my hometown. We relocated, upon her request and desire, to my hometown prior to our marriage so that when we had kids, it's best to be close to family. We had a house we loved, a dog we loved, jobs we both loved working in, or so I thought. Married in October. She goes to visit her sister over the next Labor Day weekend and I can't attend due to work. Comes back the Tuesday after Labor Day and tells me she's living a lie and someone else's dream and she needs a divorce. I had no idea. Divorce finalized in January. She married some dude that her sister was friends with, and she met on that trip I was unable to attend. This September. Life is wild. Sometimes. Honeymoon. We dated for 5 years, but on the honeymoon we had a big argument over my liberal use of sunscreen. She refused to wear any because of chemicals and I liberally use it due to my ginger skin. We seriously argued over this for a good hour and she refused to even go into the pool with me because of sunscreen chemicals. After a scuba adventure with her she could hardly walk because she got so burnt on her legs whereas my skin didn't change. She then tried to convince me that it was all my fault because I didn't force her to wear the sunscreen and that the honeymoon was ruined. It was then I realized I picked the wrong person. After a few more psycho arguments, mad at me because of something in her dreams, mad because I didn't remind her to bring an umbrella, I had to call it quits. I can't stay with someone who constantly blames me for their own problems. Luckily no kids and I got back everything I brought into the marriage. I've got to know. How did you date for 5 years and not have those sort of arguments tip you off? Or was getting married and still having those arguments sort of a tip off? Right. Like, did you never use sunscreen before in the 5 years you dated? Or she was perfectly fine with it in those 5 years bruh? There were probably minor things that I don't think were a big deal. There's always tons of little flags that go ignored. Especially after 5 years, come on. It's just easy to brush them off since they are little, then they get 10x bigger after marriage and the shit gets real. Plus it's one thing for her to ruin her evening at the local pool over something stupid and moping about it for a few days. But when she's miserable on her honeymoon and ruins what probably cost at least $1,000 for what should be a once-in-a-lifetime event, I could see it would be more eye-opening. The strange thing is, we didn't have those type of arguments before the marriage. As soon as the ring went on her finger, something changed in her. This is my fear. I don't understand why people suddenly change in this way. My wife changed after marriage too. It started on our wedding night. She no longer hid farts. She just let them rip. She had never farted in front of me prior. I found it hilarious that she was waiting to do that, like I was gonna call off the wedding if farted in front of me or something. This is hilarious. I hope you made a super horrified face the first time just to see her reaction. It's a common tactic among abusers. They think as soon as they have you locked in they can keep abusing you with impunity. This is a reoccurring theme with abusive dudes. When women become pregnant and give birth, they'll slowly progress to worse if they were hiding it beforehand. Not all dudes, not all ladies, but the crazy ones fit pretty well into this pattern. Yeah, my son's dad didn't start slamming me into walls or the ground until after I was pregnant. NGL, this is why I'm not too upset about divorce rates being higher. Back in the day, if your abuser hid their shittiness before the wedding, you'd be stuck with them. My mom was stuck with my dad for 15 years because it wasn't socially acceptable in her community to leave the man abusing her and her kids. Do I think some people are too quick to throw in the towel? Absolutely. But that's a price I'm okay with society paying if it means people being abused have a way out. That's next level devious. WTF. My first love was emotionally abusive. And I just thank God she wasn't smart enough to be this sneaky. Funnily enough, I remember having read a recent study that mentioned that our skin indeed absorbs harmful chemicals from sunscreens, but its use was still essential, because the potential sunburns you can get otherwise are way worse for your health. It concluded that you have to use sunscreen while necessary but don't overuse it when it's not really needed. When I found out she was sending Snapchats to a coworker, turns out she was sleeping with him. We got divorced. I met the girl of my dreams. We just had our first kid together 2 weeks ago. Not me, but my friend's sister. Her sister got engaged 8 months into a relationship and got married 4 months later. Everything went well the first 5 months, but the husband started acting different. He wasn't chatty. His good morning good night kisses became dull, etc. Her sister would ask if everything was okay and he would say I'm fine every time. Her sister didn't want to push him, so she waited for him to talk about what's bothering him. One evening after eating dinner, the husband said he wanted to talk about their relationship before he could talk about it. He started crying. He cried for a few minutes and then told her he's gay. The sister filed for divorce, and after the divorce was settled, she wasn't really mad at him anymore. So she went to see him and forgave him. They became good friends and the sister helped him become comfortable with his sexuality. She even helped him come out to his close friends and then to his family. 5 years later, the sister is now engaged to another man and expecting their first child. The ex-husband is now very happily married to a man for almost a year now. Compared to all the other stories, this one isn't bad. Like, divorce sucks and all, but discovering you're gay is a pretty legit reason to get one. The fact that they were able to stay friends like that makes this even better. She went out for girls' night and met a new friend named Nicole at a bar. Started texting her a lot, then going to hang out now and then. We had a baby at home and she kept trying to go hang out with this girl from another town over with no last name whom I was not allowed to meet. His real name was Wesley. My mom was like that. Wanted to party to the point my dad told her to leave since he was basically doing it by himself anyways. I had been fooling around with this girl for a while. I never wanted anything serious, and I knew that from the start. Then my mom was killed. I went into a deep depression and this girl was there for me. Her mom had died of cancer about a year earlier and I guess we really bonded over that. It pushed us much further emotionally than we ever should have gone. We ended up doing a courthouse marriage. I knew within the month that I had fucked up, but I didn't want to just give up and get divorced. Once the emotions of my mom's death passed, I realized how toxic she really was. She was an incredibly unstable person and ended up just taking me into an even deeper depression. We divorced about a year ago, after being married for about 10 months, and I was immediately much happier. Marriage shouldn't be taken lightly, but people also shouldn't force themselves to be in unhealthy relationships. We all make mistakes. Don't waste your life with someone that doesn't deserve you. When I lost my dad unexpectedly, someone told me that I shouldn't make any big life decisions for at least a year. I can totally see how if the wrong situation presented itself, all of those crazy emotions that come with grief could easily lead you into a bad decision. I hope you're doing better now. It never hurts less, but it starts to hurt less often. My sister got a civil marriage, then they moved super fucking far away to the middle of nowhere cause he got a good job. My sister never finished college and he would remind her on a daily basis about it. She would get super depressed and he wouldn't believe her. She got sick once and he told her since she didn't go to the DMV that day she wasn't allowed to go to a theme park we were planning on going to that weekend. He would demean her whenever she couldn't get a job or even an interview. and she applied to practically everywhere within a 50-mile radius. He called her stupid in front of me, and when I called him out he told me to mind my own business. If he wasn't twice my size I would have decked him. She left him after about a year cause he's obviously a raging asshole. When she left he told her she has nowhere to go, and if she went to stay with our mom she would just be a burden like me. I was like 19 and in college at the time. He's a rude fucking dick, but at least she got the car and the dog. Her running off with the guy she met in rehab was a pretty solid clue that it wasn't meant to be. Rehab is such an emotional shitstorm. That's why they tell people not to date, have sexual relationships with people you meet in early recovery, especially if you're already married to a supportive partner. A cousin of mine divorced her husband after 6 months. She knew when we had to pick her up from her home after having been recently beaten. That day, we packed up all of her stuff and never let her go back. I'm happy that you guys could be there for her and help her get out. Hope she is doing well now. She's doing so much better. Discovered that she loves traveling and a good adrenaline rush. Has done everything from jumping off buildings to skydiving and learning how to box. Good to hear. Most people just don't realize how hard it is to get out of a situation like that. Often people want to get out but are usually being controlled, manipulated, and lack the resources to get out on their own. If anyone else is reading this and you know someone or have a family member in this type of situation, you are obligated to do whatever you can to help them. GTFO. The day after we got married, when he slapped me across the face, hard and completely out of the blue. No argument, no conversation leading up to it, nothing. He said it wasn't that hard of a hit. He was just kidding around, and I was being overdramatic. He had never gotten violent with me while dating. But as soon as we got married it was like a switch flipped and he was a completely different person. It got worse very quickly, and I ended up filing for divorce 73 days after we got married. That reminded me of the scene in It, book version, when Bev's husband slaps her as a test to see what he can get away with. I'm glad you escaped quickly. Holy shit, I'm reading that book now and it totally reminded me of that scene too. This Boy's Life, with De Niro, portrays this very well. Nicest guy in the world until the day of the wedding. I think men from those days considered their wife just property and the lead-up was just a hunt. A friend of a friend husbands hit her on their wedding night. His mother came in the room when she was lying on the ground crying and did nothing. Apparently his dad used to hit his mother and so she was like, well, this is just what husbands do. Edit. People getting triggered by the use of friend of a friend. This is a friend of my best mate who I've had a few nights out with and met the husband before they got married, but never close enough for her to tell me these details. A female colleague of mine was getting beaten on a regular basis by her boyfriend. Here is a direct quote from her own mother. Well, if he ain't beaten y'all, then how y'all know he truly loves you? I had a very similar situation with an acquaintance. Her husband was abusive. She planned to leave and she told her mother about the plan, looking for support. Her mother told the husband that her daughter was about to leave and about all of the things the daughter had done to prepare. It ended up escalating the situation and the husband beat her so bad she ended up in the hospital. Mother kept defending herself, saying that you can't leave marriage. Vows are sacred, and it was all God's will. One of the scariest and saddest stories I ever heard. Thankfully she got help while in the hospital and they helped her get away. And I hope she ditched the mother for good. What a miserable piece of shit. Oof, that breaks my heart for the mother and the daughter. Breaking the stigma around domestic violence has come so far, but still has a ways to go. Sounds exactly like my ex-husband. We were together 3 years before marriage, lived together for almost 2 of those years. Once I was able to fly out to join him in Germany, not even there 2 weeks with him, and he beats the crap out of me and kicks my stomach, sending me into early labor at 8 months. A switch flipped. He completely changed. I had caught him getting nudes from a girl, while I was in the same room as him, which he had never done before. When I said, "Why would you do that to me?" he quietly got up and started choking me, never making a single sound, just hate in his eyes. That is horrifying. I am so sorry that happened to you. I'm glad you got out alive. Holy shit. This kind of stuff is terrifying. I am so sorry that you went through this. Were there any red flags, in retrospect? He was constantly buying me expensive things and taking me on nice trips while dating. To excess. And looking back, I think it was to distract me from seeing what he really was. I was 21 and just naive, thinking he was doing all this for me because he just loved me so much. But there weren't any blaringly obvious red flags. He even fooled my parents, who are impossible to pull one over on. And they loved him. They saw his true colors when he moved out, and they were in shock. And honestly, I'm not sorry that I went through this. I'm a firm believer that it helped me get to where I am, and it was one hell of a learning experience. It was terrifying dating again. But 5 years later I am happily remarried to my best friend, one of the nicest human beings I have ever met. She decided she was in love with her stepbrother a month after we got married. I'm pretty sure I watched a preview of a scene with the same plotline last night. My Mill got married the first time when she was really young. Left him a month later. Turns out he was a raging alcoholic. She had no idea because her family was super overprotective and they were never really allowed to spend time together alone before they got married. Who knew spending time with someone could be the key to knowing if they are a good partner? And this is why I plan to live with my partner for at least a year or so before getting married. I want to know what the hell I'm getting into before we're stuck together. Edit. To the people saying more than a year is better, I completely agree. I'm just saying that's my absolute bare minimum. I lived with my soon-to-be ex-husband for 2 years before getting married. He still didn't turn abusive until after we already signed papers and were about to move state lines. Sometimes, they just hide that shit until they feel like they have you good and stuck. I hear that's extremely common. I am amazed that abusers' behavior is that Machiavellian, that they'll spend so much energy and have so much self-control that they invest years hiding their true nature just so they have a better chance of hurting an innocent person for as long as they can. It's just sadistic to seek people out and trick them so you can beat, kill and destroy their lives. Not a year, but about 18 months. She was constantly complaining she didn't have friends after moving in with me. Joined a local soccer team. And she talked about one teammate non-stop for months. I had a bad feeling about it from the get-go, but she assured me they were just friends, and how dare I not trust her. Thought I was going crazy because my gut told me something wasn't right, but I was punishing myself for being a bad husband and not trusting my wife. Turned out it was all true. She had been fucking the teammate for months. Most likely fucked someone else during our engagement. Split amicably officially as of last week without any mess. Thank God. How dare you not trust me equals definitely. Definitely do not trust this person. Always trust your gut. Similar thing happened to me. I knew as soon as she mentioned his name something wasn't right about the situation. Just that crazy look in his eyes when I didn't do the dishes to his standards, like he was going to hurt me. I should have left then because I was right. I commend every single one of you who got out within the year. I knew my husband was shit during that time too, but my dumbass put up with him for over 10 years because I wanted to try and make it work. Good job, guys. God, I'm reading these stories thinking the exact same thing. And I only got out after just under 2 years of marriage. 8 years together. I hope you are living a better life now. Never better. We had good times and I don't regret my time with him. But the direction I'm going in now could have started a lot sooner if I'd just dumped his ass a long time ago. I served 12 years of hard time for my stupidity despite learning everything I needed to know in the first 3 months. A cousin of mine married someone who seemed like the perfect woman. They worked in the same store together, and he would brag about how his wife was getting promoted quickly in the company. A few months into the marriage, she tells him she's going out with friends for the evening. An hour or so later, my cousin gets a call from one of his friends. The friend saw her having dinner in a restaurant with the manager of the store that they both worked at. Once he confronted her about it, that was basically the end of the marriage. This was similar to a friend of mine. His wife spent years trying to alienate him from his friends. After they got married, they bought a house near his job. She decided she didn't like the commute to her job, even though it was practically the same, and started staying at her parents'. Friend finds out from her parents she hasn't been staying there. Turns out she was going out and partying with co-workers, then staying with an ex. Got married in late May. By August or September I found out from my dad that my husband, now ex, and my brother's wife were sexting. She was also my bridesmaid at our wedding. She felt guilty and told my dad, who had to tell me. I forgave him like a dingus, and about a year and a half later I found pictures of him sucking 2 different dicks in our house and also wearing quite a bit of my nice makeup. All of this after we moved to Washington from Florida. It's been wild. We're obviously divorced now. Edited for clarity since I guess that needed to be said. A Florida man will remain a Florida man no matter where he's moved. Edit. Thanks for the gold. You can take a man out of Florida, but you can never take the Florida out of the man. You can take the man out of Florida, but you can't take the penises out of his mouth. I had to reread this like 5 times before I realized it was your husband and not your dad that was sexting your brother's wife. I found pictures of him sucking 2 different dicks in our house and also wearing quite a bit of my nice makeup. Maybe he just lost a bet. You have to know the context. Did he say no homo after sucking the dicks? So wait. First he sexted your brother's wife, then he sucked 2 dicks after getting caught. He is a Florida man indeed. My brother died a week after the wedding, and after about 2 months, he told me that was just too big of a thing to happen in the beginning of marriage. I tried for 6 more months and then just gave up. I'm sorry about your brother. I'm sorry your husband wasn't supportive. That's kind of a dick move. To say your grief is too much of a drag for me. But it sounds like you weren't a great match in the first place. My love, Topi. Grief is awful and hard, and it is when our friends and family show their true selves. I hope you are doing better now. I don't get people like that. My sister-in-law's mother passed. A few years later, her dad dates this lady who I couldn't stand to be around, nor could anyone else in my family. Thankfully we rarely saw her, so the lady moves in, and they are basically common law for about 5 years. Then his health starts to deteriorate. Apparently his common law wife then says I didn't sign up for this and she wanted to bail because fuck, he's sick. It's not fair on me. She was always a self-centered cunt. My sister-in-law's sister had a tragedy a few years back where her live-in boyfriend got into a motorcycle accident and died. It was a shock to her and her family. She lives about 2 hours away from everyone. The funeral was set for a certain day, and her dad's common-law wife, her dad had passed by this time, called her up offering condolences and going on and on the phone. She then says, "Do you want me and adult daughter will come up for the funeral?" The sister says, "No, please don't come. After the funeral I just want to come home and be alone." The lady agrees that that's for the best. Funeral day comes. Guess who shows up with her daughter? Then after the funeral they invite themselves over to the sister's house, since they drove 2 hours and had nowhere to go. So now sister is beside herself in grief and has to entertain these two selfish assholes. The next morning I woke up and thought, when would be a socially acceptable time to get divorced? In hindsight that says miles about why I felt I had to get married. 10 years seems pretty reasonable. I could probably last 10 years couples counseling within 6 months. Separated within the year, shitstorm of a divorce and finally free 2 years after that. Would I do it all over again? I'm sure it took years off my life, but I learned so many invaluable lessons about myself along the way. Take care of yourself first. Kids, put that oxygen mask on before you help anyone else. A couple of weeks into our marriage, the sex started to physically hurt. I went to my OB and after a test or two, she informed me I had contracted chlamydia. That's when I knew. Turns out, my newlywed husband had been banging his co-worker for months. Hopefully he didn't gaslight you and try to convince you that you had it before and it was dormant, and technically you gave it to him. That happened to one of my friends. Deplorable. I brought this up with my doctor after the initial diagnosis. I thought what you said in your above comment had to be the case. That I must have contracted it from a former partner years ago. My OB explained that had I had chlamydia all those years, I would have noticed some of its long-term effects. She was fairly certain I had contracted it recently. I'm so glad that wasn't your case. Not that you had it at all, but that you knew it wasn't your fault. When I found out he had $500K in debt that he hadn't told me about beforehand. Yes, we had a prenup. He just lied about it on the prenup dart. How did he generate so much debt out of curiosity, if that's okay to ask? My brother did that by getting sucked into gambling. High stakes poker. Asshole would even brag to me about all the flights, rooms and drinks he would get comped, without bothering to think how much misery he's putting the rest of the family into. Gambling addiction is no joke. I've worked alongside some mental health professionals in the addiction treatment field and have learned. Gambling addicts typically ruin more marriages compared to drug-alcohol addicts. Think about it. A drug addict or alcoholic can be somewhat functional for a long time and their habit may not cost much. In many cases, an alcoholic husband may be able to hold down a job and not be an asshole. His alcoholism may only cost $15-ish a day. If your spouse is a gambling addict, you probably won't know about until suddenly one day you find out all your money is gone. Gamble addictions can form and spiral out of control extremely quickly. Money equals life security. People tend to tolerate their loved ones damaging their physical health more than their loved ones flushing all their money down the toilet behind their backs. Imagine your spouse suddenly throwing away everything you've worked for your entire adult life and now you're on the verge of homelessness. Even more, money equals your lifetime. You literally trade your time to earn some money. If you find out that the past 10 years of all the sweat from your work has vanished so someone else could gamble that away, it's really hard to forgive. Girl, I know. 1 month and she found out he cheated the day of the wedding. Damn, that sucks. If only someone had chimed in with a "haven't you people ever heard of closing the goddamn door?" No, you see, it's much better to face this kind of things with a sense of poisoned rationality. In fact, well, look at it this way. I mean, technically, their marriage is saved. When I was in Iraq and she posted a picture on Facebook of her and another guy laying in bed together, it was obvious that they had just hooked up. Don't get married to fix relationships. Pro-life tip. The day after the wedding, when he poked me in the chest and said, "You're going to do what I say whether you like it or not." Ugh, big mistake. This happened to both my aunt and my mother-in-law. Husbands-to-be were sweet as pie and super caring, totally charming, etc. Day of the wedding, after they say "I do," it was like a literal light switch. I believe they both said something along the lines of "You're my property now and you'll do as I say." And when they didn't, they were beat for it. I am so glad they both got out. But it took my aunt 5 years, I believe, and my mother-in-law 10. This happened to my mother. Thankfully, with help from a women's shelter, she was able to get out with my sibling. That was almost 27 years ago, and for the past 20 odd years she has been in a wonderful, loving relationship with a great man who I consider my dad. Last I heard about my father is that he died a broken man, but I don't care enough to confirm it. That happened to my great-grandmother. Her husband was 3 times her age. They got married and he made her cut her hair, hit her, etc. till the day she died. She would tell me to not get married. She said because after you marry them, they change. She told me. Wow, that is actually terrifying because I know where this leads. I hope you got out of this situation. I'm out. It took 18 months for the divorce to be final. But yes, I got out pretty quick. Too many details to go into here and I really don't want to relive it. But, believe those red flag folks. Alright, on one condition. We're getting a divorce and I'm cutting contact whether you like it or not. Best girlfriend I had to date at the time. I was in my late 30s, had never been married. Dated about a year. Got married. Shortly after, she asked to have her name on all of my assets. A few rental houses, current house, and some financial instruments. The cars. Not a problem as we were married, I thought. But on a Wednesday she insisted it be done by that Friday. I didn't have time to do that because work and a deadline. I could start it the next week, I said. She pitched a fit and said if I loved her I would do it by Friday. I found this strange and decided not to start it and see what happened. She moved out of our bedroom into a guest room. Got cold around the house. Told me she would move back into our bedroom when I finished getting everything done. At this point I thought bullshit and told her so. I went to my family lawyer to seek advice. She advised me not to put anything in her name at this point. Gave me the name of marriage counselor. She didn't want to go to counseling. She continued to live in the guest room. I took my lawyer's advice and did nothing about the assets. The long and short of it was, after 1 year of marriage, when on our anniversary she told me I didn't have her in my heart, I thought to myself, this is bullshit. About a week after that I told her if this is the way it's going to be, I'm not going to be married like this. She then told me, okay, so what are you going to give me? Yes. She said that. I consulted my lawyer on what a judge would come up with regarding community property for the past year. Number came up to 20 grams. I took that number and added about 20 grand and proposed that to her so we can make it easier. I was going to spend more than that and lawyers' fees if it got ugly. It got ugly. A week later I got served with papers. With all said in the complaint, when added up, she was going after $750 for 1 year of marriage, 1 year of divorce proceedings, and 2 years of property settlement proceedings on what should have been a 2-hour problem. Judgment came. 215 points in the judgment. I owed her what would have been the community property, about 20 grand, but awarded me attorney's fees. So in net, she owed me about 30 grand and left her to go buy her own car. Turns out this judge had worked her ass off through school to become a lawyer and the same to become a judge by 40 years old. I was told by another attorney that normally this judge never gives attorney's fees, but was so pissed off at the gold dig my wife attempted, that she felt it was justified in this case. Even though I came out okay financially, it was an emotional train wreck to have this happen and go through all that. It's been 15 years since it happened. I was not dateable for about 2 years, but now very happy with where I am and who I'm with. Edit. Wow. This reply to the OP really blew up. Thanks much for the silver and gold. These are a first for me. Not sure. How do I find out who gave those to me so I can thank them directly? I can probably Google that . Lots of good comments. I'm trying to answer each question but might take me a while. I'm in Asia right now and will be heading to bed soon. Thanks much for your thoughts. This happened 15 years ago so I am over the hurt, but the thoughts that you have been sending me have been uplifting. For the others with the stories similar to mine, and worse, I feel for you. I really do. I don't wish this type of thing on anybody. Divorce can be nasty and I don't wish it on anyone. But in the case of damaging relationships, it's a tough but needed remedy. My mom is like this woman, a serial divorce digger. She divorced my dad when I was 6 and was extremely hostile with custody battles. One time she withheld my sibling and I from our Friday evening with dad, not overnight, once every 2 weeks, because he showed me how to drink from the milk carton instead of using a glass. I'm in my 20s and she is on her 5th marriage. As an adult I befriended 2 previous stepfathers to get their sides of the story. She gets married, accuses them of being emotionally abusive, and takes their savings. Paid for her boob job with one of them. I'm sharing all this to say that goddamn do I love hearing your story. I yelled fuck yes at my screen reading the last 3 paragraphs. Edit. My mother's actual profession is a marriage counselor. I'm not fucking joking. Her last 3 husbands all have the same first name. I always joke saying at least she knows what she likes. I wonder if your mom was my temporary stepmom who married my dad for 3 years. She never worked a day, racked up 100k in debt, and somehow still managed to pull 300k from his retirement and 3k alimony for a couple years. All of this while he laid in a hospital bed from cancer and bone marrow transplants. When you look back at the relationship, do you ever think there was something you should have noticed before you married that should have been a red flag to you? I ask because it's incredible to me that somebody could be that terrible and somehow be able to hide it so well that someone would marry them. Yes, in hindsight there were things I should have seen but either shrugged it off or didn't notice. One red flag is that I know now, and look for when I meet new people, is how they treat others that can't do something for them. She treated me like a king, was very nice to my family, but I did notice that at times she could be a shit to others that can't do anything for her. I noticed this with staff at a store or wait staff. If they goofed up accidentally she would let them have it. I thought that was strange but didn't look too much under the covers on that. I really should have paid more attention to that because I got that treatment when I wouldn't do what she wanted after we were married. This was fate showing me something I should have paid attention. Unfortunately, I let the other good I saw in her outweigh this and a few other flaws that I realized upon reflection I should have noticed. I think had I dated her a little longer, maybe another year or so, some more stuff would have surfaced that I would have noticed that might have convinced me otherwise on marriage. But hindsight is 20/20. The one advice I tell myself and others is if something seems off, look into it a bit more. It might not be a big deal. In that case that's good. But it might be the tip of something a bit more malignant that you would be well served to avoid. The whole put my name on your shit or make me the beneficiary is so sketch. My mom immigrated with us to the US and a few years later she was looking for love. $, $, in all the wrong places. She met this dude who retired at 28. After a mysterious fire broke out in his factory and he got a large settlement, invested, lived off that, and he was in his 50s at this point. I was 18. Brother was 15. Mom just tells us she isn't coming home essentially. We go visit her 70 miles away where the dude is. Guy lives in a 5,000 square foot home. 3.5-story home. It had a weird layout. By himself. I think it was 6 bedrooms and 4 bathrooms. Might have been more. Has luxury car. Tells me he's gonna help me go to college. Tells my mom not to worry about the car we had been sharing as a family. Tells her not to worry about her kids. Then it begins. He never promised to pay for my school. He would just help me budget for it ? I don't need your help with math to know I can't afford to feed myself on $5.25 per hour, let alone pay tuition and art. He never said my mom could use his car. That'll put miles on it and it's an investment, not a family car. Oh, and her kids can't live in the house. But she can't live with her kids either. He needs to tap that ass whenever he feels like it. He would walk around the house with a terry cloth skirt and flash all of us repeatedly. So here is where it gets fun. My mom puts up with his crazy demands and OCD and hypochondria. BC, this is a rich man and she's been looking for that her whole life. My mom doesn't catch feelings and somehow she caught feelings for this dude. He wants to take her on vacations, our home country. A cruise here, Greece. A cruise there, Europe. Every time they go on a trip, he buys them trip insurance, not your average trip insurance but the $100k bodily injury insurance. When she goes to sign her policy, she would always put my brother and I as beneficiaries. BC, she might have walked out on us but she also wanted us to be okay if something happened to her. He flips his shit every time. First couple of times it was just why wouldn't you put me down as a beneficiary? I'm paying for this trip. Then it would escalate. The whole time they're together she's working full time making barely of minimum wage. BC, she barely spoke English. He doesn't want her to work but he won't pay her bills either. Every time he wants to take her on a trip, she's losing income. It starts to register that the man of her dreams ain't worth it. Then the insurance stuff gets weirder and weirder. She finds out he's on websites talking to Filipino women. She flips her lid. We weren't on good terms then but cops get involved during some of their fights. She realizes she needs to leave and moves into the apartment I was sharing with lil bro. But wait, it's not over. She stays in touch with a couple of his neighbors. She lived with him for about 18 months. And finds out that he got a mail order bride from the Philippines like a couple of months after she moved out, I think. Anyway, mail order bride dies mysteriously within a month. According to them, the woman looked healthy and then she was a bag of bones and then she was dead. So we are all fairly sure he was running out of money and killed her for the insurance money. Prob would have done the same to my mom except she always refused to marry him. He wanted a prenup. She said no anytime he brought it up. So he couldn't easily take out a policy on her way. He'd be the sole beneficiary. The travel insurance would have not been enough to live off of, and she still wouldn't make him the beneficiary. So some poor lady from the Philippines paid the price. Also apparently she had a son that he promised to bring over and then refused to, so it was really fucked up. Not me, but my brother. We grew up on a ranch. Bro's girlfriend comes from the city, but during visits to the ranch, she dives right in, helping our mom around the house and participating in all the stuff we do. Horseback riding, ATVs, etc. And claiming and appearing to love it. Brother so happy his city gal is compatible with the ranch lifestyle he grew up in. Even though he is now working in the city and their life will be in the city, he just loved that she was able to connect with him that way, and more importantly, with his family. They date for 18 months, make many visits to the ranch, and all is well. She insists that she wants to have her wedding at my parents' home. My folks go all out, have both families there, everyone has a great time. The next morning, we have a send-off breakfast for the couple. They head to the airport for their honeymoon. My mom and Bright's mom are visiting afterward, and Bright's mom mentions she's glad my mom had no hard feelings that her daughter and my brother will no longer be coming out to the ranch. My mom is like, "What do you mean?" Bride's mom says, "Oh, I thought Laura told you that having the wedding here was her gift to you to have your son home one last time with all his family here." My mom goes white as a sheet. We all are stunned. We are confused as to whether my brother knows this, and more importantly, has agreed to this. My other brother, who has his own history of family drama, texts our big bro saying, "Is it true that this is your last time visiting mom and dad?" And big bro texts back, "What are you talking about?" Middle bro says, "Ask your new wife." Needless to say, the honeymoon never happens. It turns out that his wife had been hiding her belief that that man leaves his family behind and becomes part of the woman's family. It was fully her intent to never visit my parents again, to spend all holidays at her parents' home, to have any future children only have relationships with her family, and on and on. My brother literally had no idea these were her beliefs, desires. To this day I don't know if she was evil or just clueless. They remained married for about a month until the divorce was final. But my bro never saw her again after the day after wedding day. Way to go, Mill, for spilling the beans so your brother could get out in time. What a manipulative psycho. I wouldn't exactly call that in time, but he is lucky he didn't get her pregnant first. Well, that was a wild ride. What kind of fucked up beliefs did she have? There's an old saying, a son's your son till he takes a wife. Your daughter's your daughter all of her life. Maybe she took this to heart. So did brother and his new wife ever actually talk to each other, or did they just run around the farm all day when they were together? It's mind-boggling to me that something like that never came up. We thought they were the perfect couple. They got along great, and yes, it seemed like they were communicating and really focused on their future. They were both in sync that they were going to live in the city, and had no desire to move out to the ranch. But I guess my bro never thought to ask, "Are you going to make me abandon my family once we're married, lol?" And as for why she never mentioned her crazy ideas, who knows? Looking back, it did turn out that her two sisters had that kind of relationship, their husbands, where they spent all the holidays, the sisters' family. But in one case, the husband was from out of the country, and in the other, he was not close to his family, so it was just by default they were at wife's family for holidays. I guess Laura just thought that's how it was going to go for her, too. That explains it. Monkey see. Monkey do. If her sister husband's family isn't around, I could see her thought process making it only logical to her that her own husband's family would be excluded too. but that is some mass psychosis issue with her own mother believing it as well. Edit. I see in another comment that JT said mom actually questioned the family in the first place because it kinda confused her, so daughter explained her thought process to mom. But mom wasn't quite on board. No mass psychosis after all. It's just weird that the mom was on board with that, and assumed the husband's family would be okay with it too. Like that's such a big, unusual ask. You'd think she'd have talked about it more with her son-in-law and his parents. Where were they from? What cultural thing was this? My sister's ex had a family that was like this. It's like they were a mini cult. Once you married and you were expected to essentially abandon your own family and fully devote yourself to theirs. Which my sister did. For a time. And it's why we have virtually no relationship now. And even then you wouldn't ever really be one of them. God forbid there was a divorce. My sister is much older than me, so I knew these people from about the time I was 6. And I watched all of their sons and daughters get divorced until my sister and her husband were the last. When a marriage ended in their family, that was when the real shit started going down. I remember one time hearing my former Bill's mother explaining to someone else that her grandkids weren't really a part of their family, since they were half ours. I mean, now, as an adult, I genuinely wonder if they expected their kids to inbreed. Fucking insane people. Not technically within a year, but when I returned from my first deployment, 10 months, I found out she had been sleeping with 3 of my buddies. Told her to pack her shit and get the fuck out. When she pulled a knife a month in, I still stayed for a full year like an idiot. Not an idiot. Glad you got out. Relationships can make your brain do the craziest mental gymnastics to justify all the bullshit. Abusive relationships especially. It's remarkable what you begin to think is normal or is your own fault. My son's dad would threaten me, call me horrible names, tell me I was fat and useless and ugly. He told me he would kill me if I ever went for full custody. And for a long time I actually believed I was the one who was a bad partner. I felt like I deserved his treatment of me. It still fucks with me mentally. And I've been out for over 5 years. And honestly the only reason I got out was to protect my son. I had a girlfriend pull a knife on me as I was moving out. To try to get me to stay. Yeah, no. Bye. Well. You make a strong case. Let me go get my bags back out of my car. See you in a sec. Knew someone who got pushed down the stairs as he was leaving GF's house during an argument. Got up, went and packed his shit up and left. Unfortunately he turned his back on her at the top of the stairs again. IDK how he didn't die, get hurt tumbling down a flight of stairs. Twice. To be fair to him about the second time, he had just been pushed down the stairs. He wasn't operating at his best. Throw in a little short-term amnesia, and that could become a vicious cycle. Not me but my dad. He got back from his honeymoon and went back to work. He came home and something felt off when he walked in the door. She wasn't there when he got home from work. Which was very odd for her since she got off work earlier than him and was always home when he got back. When she got back he mentioned that it was out of the ordinary that she had been out and asked if she went somewhere. He wasn't accusatory, just curious because it never happened. But she dodged his questions at first. Eventually, after he got suspicious of her dodging a simple question, she admitted that she'd quit her job. And when he asked why, she said she didn't need to work. So she was planning on using him as her cash cow. He doesn't remember how the conversation went exactly since it was 30 years ago. He tried counseling and asked her to get her job back, but she always brushed him off and never took him seriously. He threw in the towel 7 months later and she started trying to fix things. But it had been 7 months of him trying to fix things and she had no interest. So he filed for divorce and went on to achieve his lifelong dream. He dated and then married his middle school crush. My mom 28 years strong. Edited to add, since a lot of people were asking for clarification. Thank you for the silver and my first ever gold. Kind strangers. Oh, I like this one the best. I'm ending here on a high note. Edit. Thank you to whoever gave me gold and silver. I love that this is my top comment. Friend of mine. Very religious couple, never had sex before marriage. Told H she was gay 2 weeks before their 1 year. I want this to be told her she was gay. That would be the start of a good joke, I bet. Why did you guys divorce? I told her she was gay. Me and my bros say it to each other all the time as a joke. Didn't think she'd take it so personal. Not me, but a female friend knew 4-6 weeks into marriage. Her husband at the time basically spent a few years prior to marriage being a bit of a salesman to everyone. Once they got behind closed doors, his traditional marriage roots really came out. They both had fast-moving careers, and while he was okay with her making money and having a career, he also expected her to cook, clean, take care of the dogs, etc., and never lifted a finger. He would just come home and pound drinks until dinner time. This is a good reason why you should live with someone before you get married to them. It's a trial period where you learn a lot about the other person. And take at least one vacation together. It's amazing what you learn about someone when they are outside their usual surroundings. I saw a Facebook meme that said something like, don't marry someone until you try to put up a brand new tent together. It makes a lot of sense actually. Testing out their ability to cooperate, follow instructions, handle stress, manage new things, experience new environments with unfamiliar challenges. Oh yes, it's quite possible to love someone and really like them as a person, but be completely unable to live with them. This is the case I've seen with a lot of divorcees who are still friends. The relationship was going fine, but they never lived together before the wedding. I knew it was a mistake about 2 months into our engagement. I actually broke up with her for a week but didn't tell anyone other than my parents. Something just didn't feel right. She ended up begging me every single day and I just felt really bad and got back with her. We pretended like it never happened. Got married 9 months later and she ended up cheating on me a little over a year into our marriage. I still don't fucking understand her logic behind all that, but whatever. It's done and I've moved on, but I'll never understand why she wanted me back so badly and did that not even 2 years later. Edit. Jeez. Thanks guys and gals for the kind words and chats. If you're going through a rough patch, it does get better. One day at a time. I've remarried and we're planning on starting a family soon. Would have never imagined rebuilding after what happened with my ex. Keep the faith and things will turn around. I doubt she even knows why she did it herself. Don't waste time thinking about it. I'm glad you've moved on. Thanks. We never really talked after a few months of being split up. After she'd moved out, she would try to call me for sex. I caved twice. I missed her and I was lonely. It wasn't until I decided to date again that I was able to move on emotionally and physically. Thanks. Life has been good to me. Knew before we even got married. Spoke about how I thought it didn't feel right with my family a couple months before the big day, but was told it was just cold feet and we'd be fine after the wedding. Almost a year later I was still miserable, so I left. was an absolute shitstorm, but so worth it. My dad made a big deal when my siblings and I were each engaged that, if we weren't sure about going through with it, we could call it off at any time. Even in the back of the church when the ceremony was starting, he checked with us to verify we still wanted to do it. I always knew I wanted to go through with it, but it's still nice to really know it was my decision and not something I was pushed into. And I know plenty of people who weren't really sure but felt like it was too late to change their mind. Good on you for being brave enough to finally do it. It takes a strong person to face up to reality and have the guts to do something about it. I got married shortly after tech school. About 4 months after, we made plans for her to move from NC to TX to join me. As I am in the military and can't move 3 times, I brought it up. 3 times she said she just needed more time to move. Finally the 4th time she said she couldn't leave her friends and family to move across the country to start our lives together. A year later, we were divorced, or well, I divorced her. She obviously didn't come down to Texas for that. Signed a waiver of citation to not get any news about it. So I basically got to divorce myself, which, after hearing how vindictive ex-spouses can be, I chalk that up to a blessing. You got married while you live 2,000 miles away from each other? I feel like the red flag would have been that after the wedding you went different directions, not 4 months later. That's a shitty situation. Sorry bud. Oh, no, I got married 4 months after tech school, in June. I spent the remainder of 2014 trying to get her to move down, like she said she would in September of that year. The issue was, I was still living on base in dorms, so I had to go through the process of getting a place, moving out, and setting up so she had somewhere to live. In hindsight, I was just an idiot, lol. Every E1 is an idiot, my dude. Be glad it was a painless divorce and not a 25% April Mustang. Bless it. I bought a 2014 Camry, she had a 2012 Camry, and she called it the mommy car since we were both early 20s, so she said if we were going to start a family I needed a dada car. So yes, at least I didn't get the Mustang, lol. Not me, but a cousin. Me and my family were at a wedding reception sitting outside on a deck. My cousin comes out to sit with us for a bit and pulls out a pack of cigarettes. Her first words were, "Please don't tell him I smoke." They moved to California a few weeks later and divorced within a week of being there. Should mention they were engaged before she got out of high school. Dude probably knew she smoked. That stink permanently attaches to everything. Yeah. Any smoker who thinks people can't smell them, even after they left the room, is living in denial. Oh god. This exact same thing happened at a wedding I attended about a week ago. She also ran around announcing to everyone that she has to speak for her husband because he's so awkward. He doesn't know how to mingle right in front of him. Poor dude looks so uncomfortable the entire time. When I was about to leave, she made a joke about how it probably won't last because he's so shy and weird, but then assured me that it won't happen because they are both too religious for divorce. Edit. I forgot to add that during the ceremony he struggled putting on her ring. It was too small, so she then made fun of him in front of the church for not knowing how to put on a ring. Day after we got engaged, he changed. Then he uninvited my family to the wedding, said they would take my attention away from him. We lasted 3 months, and then I ran and hid. Edit to everyone who is asking then why did you marry him then ? I totally get that question. Here is the answer. I felt worthless. So when you grow up feeling worthless, and a partner says yeah, you are worthless, and everyone can see that, but you know what? I will love you anyway. You jump on that shit like it's the last living plant in a nuclear wasteland. I didn't leave because I honestly believed it was either him or suicide. I left because he was killing me anyway and I decided it would be less painful to just die on my own. Then I lived. I hear this question a lot. If you ask someone why they stay, it's because you don't understand the trauma they are experiencing. That means you are lucky in that regard. Be careful with this shaming question. It is a part of our trauma. He uninvited your family. What the fuck? I'm so glad you got away. Sending internet cheers from somewhere across the globe. Classic abusive relationship. Isolate the victim from outside support. If they ever doubt the relationship, they have no one to run to, so they're more likely to stay. Wow. I don't understand these people who attempt to use trickery to trap the spouse as if it's some sort of irrevocable contract. Such infantile logic. What happened next? Did you pull your hand out from behind your back and say, haha, had my fingers crossed the whole time? Then he shook his fist at the sky and said, damn you Babblewiki, always one step ahead. When I caught my new bride having a workplace affair while I was receiving cancer treatments, it was not a pleasant time for me. Edit. Holy crap. Woke up to an awful lot of really nice notes. Thank you everyone, and to those who gifted silver and gold. I am going to try to respond directly to some folks, but I will say this here. This happened about 25 years ago. Yes, I am an old guy. It really sucked at the time. The day I found out I was a few months into both a major surgery and then daily radiation treatment, I was down to about 118 from my normal 155 pounds. But, as it turned out, it was really a good thing. We did not have a house or kids and the divorce was rather simple. I went on to get married again and have 3 incredible kids I would never have had otherwise. The entire experience taught me a lot about the power of forgiveness. Admittedly, it took me too long to learn this lesson. And I have a pretty great life today. If you are currently going through something similar, please know that life can and does get better. Thank you all again, and while I watched Breaking Bad, I really never made the connection to me. So many of these comments have me laughing out loud. Edit number 2. So we tried the whole marriage counseling thing after I caught her. The marriage counselor, however, was my wife's personal therapist. We had one meeting and the therapist asked to meet with me privately. She subsequently reported to my wife, Nika seems to have a lot of anger. Yeah, think. I had just lost over 20% of my body weight. I was still going through treatments, and I found out my wife of less than a year was sleeping with a coworker. Lol. After reading this, I'm going to snuggle my wife like she's never been snuggled before. I've been telling my husband that for more than 20 years. I then follow up with trying to find a part of me that's never snuggled a part of him. Nose on knee, deer on butt, etc etc. You've never been snuggled like this before. Huh, right, I pretend he loves it. Less than a year into actively trying to get pregnant, he got discouraged, gave up and started staying out until 4:15 AM with his coworker. He posted selfies on her couch on Snapchat and even went as far as asking her to marry him once he could get rid of me. He had 2 biological children, my stepchildren, that he abandoned at home with me while he was out doing this. The icing on the cake was that on my favorite holiday, while holding my brand new baby nephew in front of his entire family, he told me he wanted a divorce. I was gone in 2 weeks, left everything to him, and vanished. New number, new address, everything. Best choice I ever made. Jesus, he really believed that was the time to announce divorce? I hope his entire family was pissed at him too. I'm glad you're away from him now. That's the kind of person who is either a coward, or insanely delusional. He probably thought she wouldn't make too big a scene if he did it in front of other people, and holding the baby so she can't get physical. I think I knew for a while, but I finally admitted it after I had left. He was abusive and it happened so slowly that I didn't see it. It's almost like being lulled to sleep. It started emotionally before I married him. Then by about 6 months in, the physical abuse had started. Shortly after, it progressed to sexual abuse as well. Long story short, a close friend saw some bruising. She was concerned and went to my parents. My dad confronted my ex and basically forced me to leave with them. At the time, I was so brainwashed I didn't get it. It's scary to look back on how out of it I truly was during that period of time. It almost feels like I was an observer of my own life 7 years and a lot of therapy later. I am in a much healthier place and in a happy, healthy relationship. On wedding day, he was angry and his family was abusive to my side for not doing enough to entertain them. They were expecting dowry and lots of gifts. I am Indian, and since it wasn't up to their expectations, they made my life a living hell for a month. I decided 1 month is enough. It wasn't too late to put an end to it. My Bill got married and divorced within 6 weeks. They were both alcoholics and got drunk and decided to fight each other. She ended up with a black eye and had him arrested. She moved out the next day. They are both still on debt over it. Not me, but a friend of mine. They had been married about 6 weeks. She had just moved in when they returned from the honeymoon. And she was rearranging furniture, organizing closets, etc. One day while he was at work, she started pulling some of his boxes down from a closet shelf to make room for her things, and a box fell down accidentally, spilling hundreds of pictures of child porn. Divorced the pedo after reporting him to the military police. They were both in the military. I thought this was going to be about the wife taking over the house with all her own stuff, but it was so much worse. Holy shit, I feel so bad for her, but good on her for reporting him to the authorities. I hope this scumbag is in jail forever. According to UCMJ Article 134 paragraph 68b, he would be subject to a maximum of 10 years imprisonment. So 10 years of breaking rocks at Leavenworth plus dishonorable discharge. Dude's fucked, and rightly so. Can't UCMJ double jeopardy with civil courts? Thought I heard that somewhere. Edit. Little slip. I said civil court where I probably should have gone with civilian court, glossing over the fact that term refers to non-criminal courts. My old law professor would be so disappointed in me, but that part hasn't really changed. When I saw him wrestle on the floor with his mom, she was in her panties. I was 17, pregnant, and I didn't realize he was a mama's boy. Not me, but my brother, and I think seeing her on top of her boss did the trick. Edit. Kinda blew up, so first thanks for Silver and he catched them because we had to come back early from a trip. Lost a fair bit of money in the divorce but no kids or pets, so he's mainly happy to be done with her. Relationship wasn't a very happy one. A friend of mine was married to this guy for 6 months. He seemed like a nice guy. He had a violent history and spent a few years in jail, but she claimed he had changed. After 6 months, he threw a knife at her because she didn't want him to eat a pie she had just baked. Later, she learned that he was also regularly poisoning her dog. The dog survived and is fine, but the marriage, not so much. Not me, but my sister. She didn't see anything wrong with him moving to another state and her staying at my parents' house and only seeing her husband when she flew to visit. He was in the army. Didn't see a problem when girls would post Instagram and Facebook photos of her husband drunk off his ass at a party when he told her he was at work. Didn't see a problem when he made huge purchases, a sports car, a four-wheeler, that they couldn't afford without telling her. Didn't see a problem when he told her she should get breast implants during sex. Nope, never saw a problem. She didn't realize it was a mistake until he sent her divorce papers. They were married less than a year. I for one wasn't surprised. I tried to tell her a marriage that started with a proposal when both parties were in relationships with different people was doomed to fail, but she didn't listen. Also, yes, this is real. I'm not making it up. I wish I were. Edit. So interesting that most of these responses are saying how stupid my sister is. No one is talking about how much of a terrible person my ex-brother-in-law is. Yes, there's an accountability and she should have been more aware, but he's the one who did the horrible shit. She was just in love. For everyone listening, always remember this simple fact. What someone will do for you, they will just as readily do to you. I wouldn't call it universal, but for a couple of people it's a consistent pattern to only upgrade when they already have a very concrete idea of who to date instead. A friend of mine, since starting to date at 15, was never again single for more than a few weeks. For some people the default is being in a relationship and only being single if they have to. For others the default is being single and only entering into a relationship when they meet someone special. When we were looking to buy our first house and he basically wanted to buy the first place that had 4 walls and a roof, while I wanted us to take our time and find the right place. When I put the kibosh on a house that was overpriced and flooded 4 times in the past, he pouted and gave me the silent treatment for a week. Finding out he was chatting with other girls and confessing his feelings for a co-worker behind my back was just the icing on the cake. He begged me to have kids. I wasn't ready, but I thought he loved me. We had money, insurance. He was my high school sweetheart. 7 years together. First year married. Why not? 2 miscarriages later, I caught him sending explicit messages to his best friend's girlfriend. As I read through the messages, I noticed the first one started with how horrific my miscarriages were. He thought I was infertile and was looking for a way out. Turns out there was issues on his end, not mine. I talked to him a decade later and he thinks God punished him for what he did to me and that's why he never had children. I have a daughter now. Karma is a bitch. My ex-husband also believed our inability to conceive was all my fault. After the divorce I remarried and had 3 children. He married the girl he cheated with and found out he couldn't have kids, after blaming her too. He didn't even have enough swimmers for in vitro. She follows my Instagram, which is so creepy. Mayo to just blatantly follow the woman whose husband you stole. What the hell? Do you think she follows you because she may be miserable with him and is looking for a friendship with you? People get a lot of validation from stealing someone else's partner. Imo sounds pretty typical to constantly compare lives to see who's doing better. He thinks God punished him for what he did to me and that's why he never had children. I don't know if this is a fucked up thing to say, but at least he sounds sort of regretful. I realized it was a mistake when I started to see that I was supposed to ask before I went and did anything. Like, at all. Anything that did not involve being at home or going to work. I had to make sure the wife was okay with it. I lost a lot of friends in the year we were married. I started to do things for myself, and it just became hell. I am, thankfully, in a much better place now. I am still unlearning a lot of shit that my ex bored into my head, but things are progressing. Slowly, but surely. I am always afraid I'll come across like this. In reality, I just want to know where they're going and when they'll likely be back, you know? Do you have any suggestions as to how to avoid becoming that kind of person? See, the thing is she did not want to know who I was with. She just wanted the control. She thrived on making pretty much every decision in the relationship. My advice to you would be to just make sure whoever you are with that you just don't take total control over everything. Just do not make it seem or feel like whoever you are with has to have your absolute approval for doing something they want to, whether it is with you or without you. Example, I enjoyed a drink once or twice a week at a nearby bar, close enough to walk to and from. No problem. Nope. She did not like going out, so I was not allowed to. Please, for all that is holy, do not do this. I beg you. Before we got married, she'd been cheating, but I was already scared of her and isolated from my family. I was afraid to have nothing left. When it was finally time for me to leave, my immediate family came through for me. I can't express that gratitude in words equals. When I began working with the elderly and saw what real love and lasting marriages looked like, I knew my ex wasn't capable of that. Probably 4 months into it, we had some discussions about him being home late without letting me know. So I worried. I'm not the jealous type. One day he just didn't came home all night and I was worried sick. I couldn't sleep all night thinking something bad had happened to him, but also started gathering all my stuff. There was no excuse in the world that I could accept if he was okay. He called me like 5 AM in the morning and said he went to a friend's place, male friend, and forgot to call me. So I took all my things and left her friend's, female, house. That was the beginning of the end. Edit. Thanks for your comments and thoughts. Now I'm realizing that I hadn't got all of it out of my chest. Happened 7 years ago. Now I've been 5 years with someone wonderful. Feels like closing a chapter. When I spent my wedding night bruised and bleeding on a hotel bathroom floor. Wow. I'm so sorry. This was also my answer. We were in Vegas. He beat the crap out of me for some stupid reason I can't even remember. It wasn't the first time, either. It took 3 months after that for me to finally be done with this shit. I hate that I wasted years dating him when I knew it would never change. From 18 years old until I was 24. Fuck. What was I thinking? I actually just left today, 1 year and 12 days into our marriage. I caught him cheating, again. I suspected when I said I do but knew for sure the first time he hit me. Not me but my brother. Joined the Marines. Married the girl after basic training. She pulled a knife on him and he kicked her out like a month or so later. They had a kid before they got married and she's still a lunatic. Friend of mine. They had been together 8 years or so. 4-ish months into being married he had kind of a psychotic break. Decided he was going to quit his government job and make a living off his mediocre paintings. That they had to move from a city she loved to a small town she hated. And that she should have a baby right now even though they agreed no kids until after she finished her education. She stuck through a solid 6 months of trying medications, therapy, the whole thing. But he decided she was everything that was wrong in his life and it was her fault that he wasn't successful with his art, so he moved out, jumped on her car and caved in the roof of it, and told her never to call him again or he would have her charged with harassment. Last I spoke with her she was loving being single, had moved to a bigger city she loved even more, got 2 more cats, for a total of 3, and was halfway through law school. I could just tell she didn't love me anymore. It's hard to explain or put into words. There are just signs and signals you notice that tell you things are going south. It was the hardest period of my life hands down. Watching someone leave you in the dust is the loneliest feeling in the world. That being said, I don't view my divorce as a mistake. I've learned a lot from it and I really feel like I am a better person after what I've learned from it. House of straw turns into house of brick. Reading these and seeing how many people cheat on the one they are supposed to love is heartbreaking and quite a shame. Not long after getting married, she was extremely lazy and addicted to pills. Ended up coming home on my lunch break and she and her stuff were gone. I called her mom and she told me she had been seeing an ex and was with him. I was divorced within a week. We had been married a couple weeks too long for an annulment. Last night, my wife was telling me about an acquaintance who got divorced within a year or so of getting married. Her husband, the acquaintance's husband, not my wife's, that would be me, refused to be in any wedding photos. The acquaintance ended up having the photo session on her own. The story boggled my mind. I could understand not wanting to get married, or not wanting to get married in a church, or having a small intimate gathering, but agreeing to the ceremony but then refusing to be in the photos. Weird. Anyway, they got divorced. Apparently he still claims that she is the love of his life. Before we even got married, I never wanted kids and never wanted to get married, which he knew. Lo and behold, I got pregnant. He wanted to keep the baby. I had no health insurance, so we got married. Love my daughter to death, but getting married was the worst mistake of my life and I knew before we got married that we were doing it for the wrong reasons. PS to the ladies out there, never trust a guy when he says his doctor told him that he's infertile because he has slow swimmers. I was stupid enough to believe him. Holy shit. He convinced you to go without a condom and lied about being infertile? I know you don't need anyone to tell you this, but that's seriously fucked up. It actually puts things into a different perspective when someone else tells you it's fucked up. I always put the blame on myself because I'm the one who believed him. And now that I think about it, it was kind of fucked up, wasn't it? It was kind of fucked up, wasn't it? Not kind of. It's really fucked up. I believe it is a crime in some states to lie about that. It has to have intent to deceive you, I believe, though. In Canada, it's a crime. Reproductive coercion. It's similar to stealthing. Learned about this after it happened to my best friend. I guess the first time it got physically abusive. It took me a while to realize there had been subtle emotional abuse for a while. As it always does, the abuse escalated. It ended up being a really bad situation. My ex fit the textbook definition of a narcissist. I would watch YouTube videos of interviews with criminals and other people suspected to be narcissists and almost be able to predict what they'd say based on what I thought my ex would say. Then the cheating started. I know of 2 others for sure, but I suspect many more. It culminated with me uncovering a half-cocked plan to murder me for my life insurance. Would they have gone through with it? Probably not, because the plan was really bad and they're not that stupid. But it was there. I had a complete breakdown. Quit my job. My insurance was through them. Sent my kids to live with their dad temporarily ill. And ended up in the air. When I called my spouse to come get me when they released me, they hung up on me. So I called my mom, who lived 2 hours away, and said, come get me, I'm done. That was almost a year ago. I'm still technically married because I've cut contact for me and my children's safety and don't have a current address for them. It's been a long uphill battle coming back from losing everything I owned. My job, my kids, my sanity. However, now I have a great job, kids are back with me. We have a great home in a wonderful part of town. And I'm enjoying getting back to being me. I'm currently divorcing an abusive narcissist, And I'm so proud of you for getting out and getting you and your kids safe. If you want to divorce your abuser, and are living in the US, in most states you don't actually have to have a current address. You can talk to your local courthouse about serving them via publication. Most states don't care if your spouse is actually served or that they received the papers. Just that you did your own due diligence to serve. Again, talk to your local courthouse and clerk to get more details. But you should still be able to fully sever the marriage and get that part of your life over with once and for all if you're ready to. Regardless of whether or not you have his address. This thread is making me feel better about leaving my incredibly drab engagement with a guy who I wasn't really in love with or attracted to anymore. It was mutual. We are both off to brighter horizons as individuals. This thread makes me feel very fortunate I have such a great wife. Edit. Thanks for all the really great responses. I remember thinking, I shouldn't do this as the officiant was asking for our vows. 10 years later, I'm almost free. Don't get married if you have doubts. Just don't. It's a tie between when my friends pointed out that I had to ask for permission to do anything and reading what his grandmother wrote about me in the family newsletter they sent out. I should have left when he ran away from my stepdad's house at Thanksgiving because he thought he was allergic to weed and they were going to kill him. He's a doctor now, so I hope he looks back on himself at 19 and feels dumb for that. Also, we'd been engaged for like a year and I don't think he ever told his parents. I feel really dumb in retrospect. Newsletters. Those fucking things are like poking a hornet's nest. What did dear old granny have to say about you? X and Angel Burn 1 got married and grandpa bought them a vacuum. Mill was at their place and it looks like she doesn't know how to clean, so I hope that helps. 1, we both cleaned and it wasn't a mess at all. 2, he said he'd buy us one but he bought one at a garage sale and it was a million years old. I don't even know if it worked. I think she said it was a shock too. Wow. And she sent that to you. And everyone she knows? That's just nasty. No, she sent it to everyone else. I read it when we at their house helping them out because they were old and we were nice. I didn't know she disliked me at all. It was really disheartening to find out. You're always going to feel dumb about stuff you did when you were younger. But you have to go easy on yourself. You can't judge younger you for now knowing everything you know now. Especially when those mistakes helped you learn it. 2 months in, I was pregnant with a child we had been trying for almost 2 years and he was mad. Then a month later quit his job and refused to work. It just got worse from there. At 24 weeks pregnant, almost lost baby. He wanted a DNR because he will not raise a disabled child. And he did not even hold his son when born and left after 10 minutes. I knew I was done. We got married after 4 years. I'm getting married next week and these answers are making me hyperventilate. Marriages take work. It's not like you'll get married and you're done. You get out of it what you put into it. As long as both you and your so go in with that mindset and good communication, you're well on your way. Don't let the anecdotes of others freak you out. Almost immediately, he treated the marriage certificate like it was my title. I was then his possession. I was really pissed when the lawyer told me that I had to wait 6 months for the divorce. This is ass backwards. Should be 6-month waiting period to get the marriage license. 24 hours for the divorce. I knew when we were dating it was a mistake. I knew when he proposed it was a mistake. I knew on our wedding day it was a mistake. I was young, so I kept foolishly thinking that he would eventually grow up and man up once we hit certain milestones. That is being engaged, being a married man, being a homeowner. Yay, never happened. The only change was that he could now run up debt that I would be legally responsible for, and that he felt entitled to have access to my bank account since I made a lot more than he did and I was his wife. Cousin and I were engaged for a bit before learning that would be weird. We were like 9 or 10. Me while reading this, oh fuck. Thank God. Also this was funny as hell. Double thumbs up from me. It's all good. I got married in a friend's front yard when I was 5. The boy was the same age as me and gave me a Batman ring. How could I say no? When my cousin was like 7, he married his cat and we held the wedding in front of the PlayStation 2. My 8-year-old can't really imagine that she'd want to marry anyone besides her cousin. But she is starting to recognize that it would be weird. My dad recently got married to his 3rd wife. Lasted only a couple of months before divorcing. He said they had nothing to talk about and that they didn't notice earlier because of their intense physical attraction. These are things no kid wants to hear, but he repeated it profusely. Had an emergency appendectomy. When I was laying in the hospital recovering, she told me I ruined her birthday weekend. I laughed thinking she was joking, but she was serious and held it against me for months. I don't remember when I knew it was a mistake. I fell out of hope we could make it work. I kept finding excuses for his behavior and contradictions. We were together 5 years before getting married. I loved him more than I've loved anyone since, but somehow everything changed the minute we got married. After months of feeling lonely, of him not coming back home before late in the evening, of being suspicious he was cheating, I left. He did admit that he took me for granted after I left and he was trying to win me back, but I was simply unable to trust him again. He just thought that my happiness could wait. We were married forever after all. We tried to get back together but it was over. Thankfully, I am very much in love today, but I do remember my time with that man fondly. A few weeks before the wedding, people already had vacation taken for it as well as reservations. Plus the money I got from early gifts was already spent on the wedding. I felt like I would be screwing over my family and friends if I didn't go through with it. Ultimately though, there was only so much mental and physical abuse I could take before I kicked her out. 2 weeks later I found out she was pregnant with my best friend's child. I was more upset about losing him as a friend, but boy was his wife pissed. First time. Because she refused to acknowledge the fact that I had been doing all the housework. Most of the income was mine. She was verbally abusive and she blamed it on her mental health but refused treatment because it was for insane people. She kicked me out for pointing all that out. 2 days later she called me in tears, saying she wanted me back and was willing to go to therapy. So I went back. Man, I was done. Second time. She tried for about 2 weeks but it was evident nothing changed. She was even worse. More abusive. More helpless, etc. I called her out on it. She threatened to hurt herself and I noped the shit out of there. Blocked her number, her social media, changed all my password and became horribly depressed for several months. Since I didn't know if she was fine. Therapy and company helped me get through it all. Bad times, man. But even worse decisions to begin with. 48 hours into the marriage, I proceeded to give it solid try to 6 months before finally accepting it was a sinking ship and I needed to get the fuck off. Over 10 years later I've been happily married to my second husband for 5 years. Listen to that little voice in the back of your head. Obligatory, not me, but my cousin-in-law. She got married after years together. All was well and good. They had a perfect wedding and they both looked so happy. Their parents spent so much money even though they're not wealthy because they were an absolute dream couple. The next day she told her new husband she wanted a divorce. She had been cheating on him and was in love with someone else who she'd known for maybe a month. Everyone was devastated for him. She had no remorse. Poor guy didn't see it coming nor did anyone else. She broke up with the new guy a few weeks after she divorced her husband too. She came home one night about 4 months in and said she didn't like sex and never wanted to do it again. Later we ended up discussing an open relationship so I could still get satisfied. Turns out she just didn't want to have sex with me anymore. I knew before the wedding when I found out he was going to propose and I wasn't ready after 2 years together. I freaked the fuck out and said yes when he proposed. What else are you gonna say when the man you love is on a knee? But I was so stupid. Long story short, found out that he had reached out to an ex to hook up a few weeks before the wedding. I let it go like an idiot. I knew I had to leave within 3 months of marrying that dingbat. I knew in my gut it wasn't right. But I moved forward because everything was planned and paid for. Single AF and loving life now. When he started beating up my son. Found out a few weeks after that he had also been cheating on me. Lasted less than 9 months. My uncle got green card married to a Mexican woman he met online. Convinced that by the end of the 2 years before she could become a citizen, she would fall in love with him and want to stay with him. She made it very clear that wouldn't happen. She just wanted to bring her kids over and needed a good Samaritan to help. Well, once she started dating people after their marriage he realized he was wrong and they divorced. She and her kids got sent back to Mexico. Honestly, my uncle is 100% at fault. He's a misogynistic neckbeard who tricked a woman who was very clear with her intentions into thinking he was a supportive friend and ally, when in reality he wanted to make her dependent on him and force a relationship on her. 3 weeks before the wedding. I say I am lucky but honestly was young and stupid to let it go that far. Once you decide you are in love it is amazing what you can rationalize. I knew it was a mistake deep down but wanted to be the best husband so I decided to just let the yelling and insults slide because love until I saw her mom treating her dad the same way. It was like seeing an older, defeated, and crushed version of myself sadly smiling and saying how much we love each other just like he did. Fuck that. We had no problems but it was toxic so I got out. My brother was married and their divorce was finalized 9 months later. We all knew it wasn't going to last although we thought it might have lasted little longer seeing as they were on and off, but mostly on for the previous 5 years. It was like they needed to make an official commitment so they could officially break up. 5 months after we tie the knot, I find out that she's been having an affair with a co-worker. Our 5-year relationship was turned upside down because some dude with pretty tattoos wanted a quick and easy side piece. I powered through it, even packing up and moving across the country with her for a clean start. She never worked on rebuilding trust, kept talking to another guy on Snapchat and promising they were just friends, and overall didn't give a shit about me. We're separated, but not yet divorced. Our 2-year anniversary is coming up in a couple of weeks, and I so miss that girl I proposed to. She's long gone though, but damn, I'd give anything to have my fiancée back. Sometimes people get married, or undertake other projects, to save a fading relationship. People are afraid of breakups. But someone can be good for you at one time in your life, but be bad for you in another time. Nothing wrong with that, you know? It isn't failure. It's just life. This speaks volumes to me right now. I'm not married, but we're long distance and kind of at a make or break point right now. She recently told me she didn't love me like she used to, and I don't see it working out. Unfortunately, neither one of us has admitted it to the other. It's causing me endless anxiety. I knew something was off before the wedding. Even made a joke the night before that worst case I get divorced, right? Ha ha ha. Cutest to my pops. He said if I wanted to, we could just say fuck it and call it off. But I thought I was being irrational. A year later I left my ex and never went back. On our 1-year anniversary I wasn't putting out fast enough, so they tried to rape me. Changed their mind. Then threw me into a wall. Lots of emotional abuse before then, but there was a lot of gaslighting. So lesson learned. But that was a lot of years ago. I got divorced, went back to school to get my degree, got counseling. Now I'm married again. This time I didn't have any second thoughts at any point. Best decision and I have made marrying my now partner. I felt I had to add the happy ending there. Not me, one of my siblings' kids. Long distance relationship, short engagement, they're Mormon. The kid's future father-in-law casually mentioned the fiancé's severe struggles with depression and refusal to seek help or take medication for it. Came as a total shock. They began the process of separation within 12 weeks of the wedding date. Edit. This conversation happened at the wedding reception. Dated for 9, then married for 1. It hit when we started living together right before the wedding. I like getting out but value a home for the seclusion escape. She grew up in a big and close family. She wanted energy wherever she was. It created tension out of the gate. Then her cousin and subsequently her best friend had to stay in our extra room. Home never felt like ours and we didn't confront it. Just let it fester quickly. One day we were having dinner and she just blurted out, "I don't think this works for us." Knew exactly what she meant. Wasn't mad and agreed. That's how I knew it was correct. Her getting involved with another equally energetic guy she met on a recent vacation with her gals didn't help. It was just the driver. But honestly, in hindsight, the disconnect was already embedded before that. I was just as susceptible to another gal, but I didn't want the drama. Right action to avoid it, wrong reason. Which means we were likely doomed regardless. We got married because it felt like the next natural step. Live and learn, communicate. I like my women like I like my coffee, without someone else's penis in it. Originally tried to divorce 9 months in. Ended up staying 2 years. I knew it was a mistake when I caught her fucking the therapist I sent her to after she said her first fling was caused by severe depression. Stayed due to family tragedy. Don't regret it, but wish I'd gotten out earlier. I do you better divorced within 5 months. When I caught my neighbor balls deep in my wife right in front of our 1-year-old boy. Honestly, before we even got married, but there was a great deal of denial and fear surrounding ending the relationship months before the wedding. However, there was a definitive moment when I realized this was not the man for me. About 3 weeks into our honeymoon we had been traveling through the British Isles and finally made it to Italy. I really wanted to stay in a remote village and be immersed. He did not. We settled on Florence. Don't get me wrong. It's lovely there and we saw a lot, but it's extremely touristy and I didn't feel like I was getting the full cultural experience in a big city like that. I asked our host of the B&B what their favorite restaurant was. Something only locals know about. The sweet man drew me a little map and even told me it would look closed and was very small and had very specific hours, which he wrote down for me. The next day, after some searching, we find it in an alleyway off the beaten path and it's like a dream come true. Only Italians. No English translations on the menu. No couple from Florida at the table next to us. It's fucking packed and it smells so amazing. They squeezed us in on a tiny table, got us menus and said what I imagine was, "We'll be back in a bit." I was awestruck by finally feeling like I was in my home country. I'm from Italian descent and all American Italians dream of visiting Italy. This place was something out of the movies. Small, dim lights, loud, classic Italian music in the background. The little old Italian lady making the pasta looked like my nonni. I was just smiling and taking it all in. For the first time since landing, truly feeling like I was in Italy. My husband looked at me and said, "This is too cramped. I can't eat here." I looked back at him and he just got up and walked out. I had to hold back tears realizing that he just walked out on me when I had found the happiest place on our honeymoon yet. The waitress came over confused and I just apologized as I stammered out of the restaurant. Both embarrassed and heartbroken, knowing this was not the kind of man I wanted to share experiences with. I knew at that moment I had made a huge mistake. No, me, but my uncle was physically abused. Most people think abuse only goes one way, but she would hit him if he was late from work. She stayed home with the baby and didn't clean or cook. She expected him to do everything, even after working a 14-hour shift. On time he got home and made a hot pocket and she yelled at him for an hour, saying she bought those for her to eat. Thank God she signed the divorce papers without causing a fuss. Mostly knew a long time before, but he was really good at gaslighting. Leading up to the wedding he made me jump through more and more hoops to please his family, assuring me that it would be all better once it was all done. It never was. A week in, I needed to get away from an abusive family member. We were supposed to move to another country together in a month, so we weren't living together then. And I asked to move in with him. The reply was, "It's my parents' house. I can't do anything." The straw that broke the camel's back. 6 months before wedding, DH's sister killed herself. Knew then it was a mistake then. Wanted to delay wedding, but DH wanted to move forward. Immediate changes in personality after wedding. Abusive verbally. Escalated to physical. Tried therapy. DH lied in therapy about abuse. Nope the fuck out W, nothing but what I came with in the dog and dishes. Had to move twice BC, he kept stopping in to check on me, at 7 AM or 10 PM. Met my current spouse a few months after final divorce. Been together 11 years. One beautiful daughter and a bunch of furry babies. Never been happier. Before the wedding, I was too stubborn, stupid, and thought that I could make things work and we would be different. No. The nail in the coffin was when we tried swinging. Before polyamory became popular. Because I wasn't pretty, skinny, tall, adventurous, different enough to satisfy him, and that turned into him making it to third base with someone else we hadn't discussed before that I walked in on. I considered that cheating. She was a stay-at-home wife, not even a mom, who just flat out refused to work. She would not cook or clean, but rather tell me what needed to be done when I got home from work after she spent the entire day playing on the computer. I was struggling to take care of things, working 2 jobs. I asked her one night what we would do if I couldn't take care of things with my 2 jobs. She responded, "Well, you'll just have to get a 3rd job then." Yeah, short while later. Nope the fuck out of there when she started to not only be mentally abusive and manipulative, but she would shove me up against the wall and start being physically abusive as well. The moment we left the wedding, he made the car fishtail into traffic and it scared the shit out of me, and he wouldn't stop when it freaked me out. But 15 years later we're best friends, and me and my new husband are godparents to my ex-husband's sons with his new wife. So it worked out. Not me, I've never married, but a close friend of mine that divorced within a year told me he knew on his wedding night he was making a huge mistake. In the months leading up to his wedding, his soon-to-be wife was spending more time with her mother than she had in the previous several years. On the day they wed, right after their nuptials, They went to take photos while the guests enjoyed cocktail hour. As they were getting ready, his new bride asked him to walk to an area with her for a minute of privacy. When they got to this gazebo, or something, I don't recall exactly, her mother was waiting for them. As it turns out, the mother and bride went into a long diatribe about saving his soul. How together they'd recently been reborn and found Jesus, and wanted him to start attending services with them. Now, this buddy of mine is an atheist, always has been. He was not raised in any kind of religion, but he doesn't announce his beliefs either. He has absolutely no qualms with people following God or whatever, but like me, he just doesn't want others to force their beliefs on him either. So he sat there on this gorgeous day, listened, and faked enjoyment the rest of the evening. The honeymoon was painful, and when they got home he tried to tell her he just wasn't interested in following, but was happy and supportive of her to find happiness the way she was. It wasn't good enough. Her and her mother began pushing him, and within 6 months he dropped the bomb that there was no way their union would last. He had a rough couple years after he moved out of his own house that he allowed her to live in, but he's since met someone else, remarried, and had a baby. Dude is an all-timer, one of the nicest people you could ever meet. Got married and it lasted exactly 6 months before we called it quits. I knew our wedding night, he was more interested in smoking weed with his so-called friends instead of spending the night with me. I got married at 18. Coming from an abusive home, I knew going in that it was a mistake, but felt caught in the momentum of wedding planning. Invitations had been sent. I was too young and too afraid to say anything. It lasted 2 years. I met and married the love of my life 2 years after that, and we've been married 28 years and have 4 kids. When she got me sent to prison for giving her side piece, which I had suspicions about, a ride which ended in a shootout, and wound up bailing him out instead of me, with my own money, and moved 1,500 miles away. Got married on our 4-year anniversary, divorced 10 months later, found out she had been cheating the whole time, hooking up with strangers on fuck sites, sometimes even selling herself for cash. Maybe that turned her on because we didn't need money. I'll never fucking know why she did it. I was a great man. I sacrificed my health and sanity for her, and at the end of the day I was just a paycheck and a cash cow. I'm still not okay a year and a half after it ended. I'm done talking about it. I'll just end up stupid depressed, and I finally quit drinking a half gallon of vodka every morning a couple months ago. Have a good one. Hey dude, she doesn't deserve you. Don't let her being a bitch ruin you. You fucking go out there and be a fucking beautiful human being, and don't let anyone get you down. You can get through this, I believe in you, good luck. So not me but an ex. So I dated this girl for almost a year. We'll call her Lisa. Really thought I was in love with her. I mean, she was a pretty, cool, slightly older chick. Opened my eyes to a lot cool different stuff. Those were some crazy days. So around the end of the relationship she started to act a little weird, distant. I of course handled it in the most mature and adult way, by being clingy and irrational. I still cringe thinking about it, but you know, to be young and in love. Well, fast forward to after our breakup. I am incredibly depressed. I mean, don't want to get out of bed depressed, and to add to it she already has a new boyfriend like a week after we broke up. Yes, I know. I know. I am also in the future with you looking back. This guy, we'll call him Rick, is literally the opposite of me. He's tall, absolutely shredded, and has a good job. She brings him around our mutual friends and like everybody loves him. So about 3 months after that I am feeling a little better. I run into her at a party and she tells me she's getting married to him. Honestly, I was fairly over the breakup by then and I wished her luck. So as the wedding day draws closer she keeps calling me and we chat from time to time. One night she calls and tells me that how great it would be if I showed up to her house before wedding and whisked her away. Now if she had asked me like a week after we broke up I might have done it, but by this time I had gotten laid a couple of times, lost some weight and was feeling pretty good about myself. So it was a hard pass on that. That was the last time we talked for months. The day of the wedding comes and I proceed to get absolutely trashed. I turn off my phone, pick up a rando at the bar and party the night away. Yes, I know I wasn't completely over Lisa, but I think I handled it well. I wake up the next day hungover as fuck and turn on my phone and she had left a message. I deleted it without listening to it. The day after that I get a call from a mutual friend and he told me Lisa had to go to the hospital. On the night of their wedding Lisa and Rick went downtown to party. Apparently they got into a fight and he beat her up. From what I hear they got the marriage annulled a couple of days later. I'm only on here to see if my neighbors comment and admit the real reason. Because it plagues our entire cul-de-sac. I have a lot of sifting to do. Edit. They were a young couple that dated a few years and even owned 2 homes together and pets. They were married for maybe a year. Suddenly one day he comes across the street barely a year into the marriage and tells us he wants a divorce. Says he's unhappy. Doesn't give real defined answers. We knew she had some issues with anxiety but was so not expecting them to be a cause to this or anything or expect any infidelity from either side. She said she actually didn't know why he was divorcing her. Our cul-de-sac is small. I could tell you every name of everyone and their kids, their pets, what they do for a living and when they come and go. I mean, not like we all stalk each other, just, these neighbors and I live at the end and we have cul-de-sac parties and shit. We kinda guard the entrance, we joke and talk endlessly about putting in a toll gate. I keep acting as if it's that season on Roseanne where Becky is played by Sarah Chalk because the new chick looks nearly identical to the old one and it was such a seamless switch at the end that it's hilarious. Not me but a co-worker. We actually had the same wedding day but she was already legally married to him. I'd never seen them together, but I don't know if she'd ever said anything positive about him. It was still really rough to see it break down. God dang, this is a thread for people having marriage issues. Over a decade and nothing close to this. Makes all the annoyances and inconveniences come into focus. Damn, do I love my wife. There were a lot of red flags that I can only see now, in hindsight. TBH. For context, there was a pretty big age gap between us, and he had a really rough life when I first met him. Some friends of mine and I helped him get out of his bad situation, although it meant leaving his mother behind. Sweet woman. TBH. I couldn't see at the time how much that would fuck him up. But, oh boy, there was a pretty long gap in the middle where I was focused on my career in politics and didn't see him. But when we reconnected he had become pretty hot. NGL. He had gotten involved with some pretty hardcore religious types, but they seemed like good people, and we even had some friends in common. We got to spend a lot of time together during that period because reasons. But he was honestly funny, charming, a little creepy at times. Probably should have picked up on the fact that his politics kinda sucked even back then. But, I guess I was just too smitten at that point. His mother died right in the middle of our time together, which fucked him up pretty bad. I started to see an angry side to him which I should have found more disturbing, truthfully, but, I mean, his mother had just died, and I figured it was only a human reaction to that kind of pain. To be honest, I kinda thought I could save him. I know how stupid that sounds now, but he really had this puppy-like quality at times that made you just want to cuddle him. I got married to him right at the start of a big war in our country at the time, and we kinda felt like we had to live each day to the fullest given that we might not have much time together. The war, as it turned out, escalated very quickly, and within a year it had taken a pretty heavy toll on his mental health. It didn't help that I got pregnant around the same time. He started really worrying me when some pretty ugly abandonment issues reared their head. He couldn't bear the thought that something might happen to me and he'd lose me, whether because of the war, or complications from childbirth, or, I honestly don't know. He got real moody around this time and I could just feel our relationship slipping away. The last straw, though, the point where I definitely knew I had to leave him, was when he force choked the hell out of me on Mustafa, and left me for dead while he fought with his old mentor. We separated pretty soon afterward, and it's left me pretty broken. TBH, the world feels like it's just fading away, and I've kinda lost the will to live. Ooh, this one sounds juicy. Upvoting it to help push it up and get you some answers.